It's this basically it's this your chart, but where all the planets are on the outside.
Okay.
Currently. Yeah.
And we are live. Live. So, did you send it to me through Facebook?
I did, yeah. The same
Oh,
way.
okay. Yeah, I got it. Yep. So there it is. And we are live. Ooh. Excuse me.
Yeah, a little bit of a jumbled morning.
Yeah, it has been. Welcome, everybody, to Slip Into the Night, episode 24. Ooh, I got some gas this morning. Ooh. Horoscopes. This week, Holly and I will be going over my horoscope.
Yeah.
Ooh. Everybody can learn a little something about Chris. It's funny, I was talking with Holly before the show. I woke up and I went to bed fairly early last night. And got up early this morning. I woke up at like 6 o'clock, sat up and, started getting all my shit ready and got my coffee and all that. And I was, waiting for Holly because I knew that she was going to have some issues this morning. And it got to be about 8 o'clock and I went, yeah, that bed's looking really good again. So I, set my little alarm on my phone and I fell asleep. Well, I had a dream about my ex-wife. And it was really weird, but at the end of the dream, like, she was hugging me and I was just like, stop it. Just stop it, because I know this isn't real. And I was crying in my dream, and I woke up all out of fucking sorts. Like, I got up and I shut off my alarm because I woke up to my alarm, and I'm just like walking around the house like a fucking zombie. Just because I could, and it wasn't that I wasn't awake, it's that I just was not, I wasn't with it. I was still kind of there. Which was really fucking weird. Because that hasn't happened in a long ass time that I've had anything like that. But that's weird when you have one of those dreams that kind of like takes you back. Because it wasn't like it was back in time sort of thing, but it seemed like it was current. But having that happen, it brings back all kinds of emotion and bullshit. It's not any fun. Not any fun by any stretch.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I had a dream this week where I woke up in the middle of the night, and do you ever have those? It was Wednesday night into Thursday, and I woke up, and in my dream I'm like a fugitive.
Oh yeah.
So I'm on the run, and it is strange, and I'm like hiding from something. And then I wake up and it's like, that my heart is like beating out of my chest.
Yeah.
I'm like terrified. And like, yeah, I find myself in my bed and I'm safe and I'm fine. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. Well, I told you, like, there was one other time that I had a dream about her, but she was torturing me.
Yeah.
Like, and like, there was these weird things that were on my hands, and anytime I tried to get them off, they just dug the razor blades in further.
Oh God.
And it was just it was one of those dreams where it was just full of so much like physical pain. And when I woke up, I was just like in a sweat. I was just like, what the fuck? It really just kind of took me, it fucking threw me back. I was like, wow, what the fuck is this? But yeah, it's weird what they can do to you. Those damn dreams. God, and then you wake up and you go, yeah, that didn't happen. That wasn't fucking real. I mean, I think that was the biggest part of it was like it's at the end there in the dream. Like I knew it wasn't real. It was but when I was saying to her, this isn't real, it wasn't the dream, it was the hug. That was the part
Right.
that was painful. So
Yeah.
it was strange, but yeah, I woke up, what the fuck? And here we are. So yeah, we just so everybody knows, next week we will not have a show. Holly is busy on Saturday morning. I don't know if I'll do a different show, one of my other vehicles next week or something, possibly. But we will not be doing Slip Into the Night next Saturday. So
Yeah, I gotta work.
yeah. So those things take precedence over this bullshit. And let me see if we can get this up so everybody can see my little thingamabobby. And there you go. That is my horoscope, as done by Holly Peckham. Oh,
Hey.
shit. Damn it.
You are on the naughty list.
I am.
Those things you keep close to your heart. That's one of them that I was trying to keep close to my heart there. It's my last name, buddy.
Fucking A. How did I do that? Damn it. Oh, God. I'll let you smack me the next time you see me, Holly.
Oh my God. You.
Now I'm like hot. I feel like such an ass.
See what happens when you go sober?
Yeah, exactly, right? If I was high, that wouldn't have happened. Holy shit. Oh, God.
Well, that's because when you see me in person, you will say the whole thing, and
That's just who I am. I do
yeah,
that to everybody.
yes, you use the whole name, and
I'm just weird like that.
yeah, it's all right.
Oh, shit.
Oh gosh.
I might be able to fix it in post.
Oh gosh. Well, we probably don't have much of a listening folks, and this isn't exactly like
Well, for the record, you're not exactly easy to find anyway.
it's true.
Um,
I'm a
I know,
semi-hermit.
I know that. Well, no, I mean, just because I know when I tried to look you up on Facebook,
Hmm.
you're very hard to find, even with your last name
Yeah,
to search
yeah.
for, which is weird because the same thing happened with one of my exes. And her name was so unique when I went and popped it up, like it popped up no one around here either.
Hmm.
Like I was getting people in Australia.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Um.
I literally had to have her send me a link to her Facebook page just to find her.
Hmm. Yeah.
So you're like one of those people that are really hard to find anyway.
Yeah.
So you're
Huh.
aloof.
I'm stealthy.
You're aloof.
Yeah. I try not to be actually, but I do try to keep a minimal internet presence for various reasons.
Yeah.
Um. But we were kind of talking at the end of the last show about your um. I had mentioned a few things about it, and then we were like, "Why don't we do a show on it?"
Yeah.
So I sent you. This is your chart in a program that you can access from the internet called astro.com, and you just put your date of birth and your place of birth in the chart, and then you get what they call the horoscopic wheel here. And this one, and there's a different kind of like styles and fonts and stuff. Like this one's called Hellenistic
Mhm.
Pole Signs Chart, um, which is the style that I am most comfortable with. And so we can just talk a little bit about what's going on in your astrology. So what this is Chris's natal chart with the planets on the inside and the current transits on the outside of the wheel. And I think I'd mentioned last time that I actually really one. I think that Chris has a really fabulous and interesting chart, and he has this So when you read it, you kind of read it from the left side around counterclockwise. And you can see each one, it looks like a pie, and each of those slices is what they call a house.
Mm-hmm.
So all those symbols are the different celestial objects and planets, and there are some calculated points in there. And so this is in the Hellenistic style, which is like the ancient Greek, astrological way of reading that goes way back to like Babylonian times. But the Greeks really kind of took it to another level. Yeah. So to them, the most important, everyone who is like kind of current contemporary astrology thinks of their sun sign, which is the sign that the sun is in when you are born. So in this chart, Chris is an Aries, but to the ancients that's not personal, and they were much more interested in what your sign was. That's personal, which is what's the sign that is rising on the eastern horizon at the very moment that you are born. So that's why you need to have the date and the birth time and the place of birth to know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
So because that makes it very very unique to when as you're born, you take that first breath in. It's also really hard to know unless someone's really careful about recording the time, which is not most people's priority.
Right.
When they're giving birth. And, in modern times, if the clock isn't accurate, there could be some inaccuracies there. So, but you have a birth time, which we've put in, and it's seems to be what's interesting about it is that gives you what's called the sign that is rising for you is Taurus.
Another bull-headed sign.
It is the sign of the bull. Yep. And it is a earth sign, so it's earth energy sign. It's called fixed earth, which means it's not moving. It's concentrated. So Taurus, the kind of the key words are like steadiness, stability. They want to develop things and grow things and work towards things. They also like kind of stability, so like things the same a lot. But yours is kind of modified because there is right there at that line it says AS, which stands for ascendant. You've got a couple of things there. You've got it looks like a V. It's the asteroid Vesta. There's another asteroid there that I put in right on your ascendant. It's called Intercosmos. And right above that line is in red. It looks like a 4, but that's the symbol for Jupiter.
Yep.
So all of these things give information about who you are here in this lifetime, according to the ancients, that you're coming into the earth realm, but there's something a little bit intercosmic about you. And I think when I saw that, I laughed because one of the ways I had first met you was through the Freudian slip channel, and your icon has always been a little alien guy. Right? So you're kind of like unconsciously picking a non-earth entity to be your icon. And so it always makes me chuckle when I see this because you have this asteroid about intercosmic stuff right there on your ascendant. It would also suggest that you'd be interested in things that are maybe not of this world.
Right.
Which is interesting, though, because Taurus is this earth energy. It's a little bit, it's very essential about being here in the physical.
Well, I'm a I
You
wouldn't
know,
say I'm a
so
diehard skeptic,
mhm,
but I'm a very skeptical person. I love all of these subjects and I
mhm,
love the topics, but I'm also a very
mhm.
rational and skeptical person.
Right, so you see that right there in that first house with that intercosmos asteroid in Taurus, which is Taurus is just super grounded in reality, very plain, common sense outlook on life, um, and about kind of enjoying the physical world or experiencing the physical world in a very sensual, tangible way.
Mhm.
When we look at a chart like this and we see the first house is called the helm of the chart. The ancients thought that this is where the point of steering you through your life is. So the next thing to really look at is where the each zodiacal sign has a ruler, a planetary ruler. The planetary ruler of Taurus is Venus. Um, so Venus for you is actually located in what's called the 12th house. It's one house above your first house. So she's there in the house, the 12th house. They called it the house of the bad spirit.
Huh.
um, but the house of the bad spirit to the ancients, it was not necessary. It was not considered a favorable place to have any kind of celestial object. But it could also mean that you work in those kind of realms or you have experiences in those realms. So that your point of steerage, your planet of steerage, the helmsman of your chart is in this realm of the bad spirit, which encompasses mental health, addiction, hospitals, um, behaviors or horror behaviors or the horrific, the monstrous. Um, would suggest that those types of topics are going to be very prominent in your life.
Huh.
You actually have what they call a stellium, which is four or more celestial objects in the 12th house. So that gives it even more importance to your life. So you have the sun there, you have Mercury there, and you have a couple other asteroids called um, Chiron and Athena there also with Venus.
Mhm.
So all of that is saying that you are going to have a lot of interest or experience with those kind of issues. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Um, and with your sun there, you're illuminating that, and it's a really dark subject matter. But you have your sun there, so you kind of bring it to light naturally. And the sun, and for you, the zodiacal sign that's ruling that 12th house is Aries, and the sun is exalted in Aries. So for someone else, well, this might, if they didn't have the sun there, for someone who doesn't have the sun there, that might really kind of bog them down. For you, that actually helps your chart.
Mhm.
It makes it more of a topic of interest or experience or exploration. And Aries is a very is this kind of this is the sign of the explorer, um, and the pioneer as well as the warrior archetypes. So
Mhm.
it's like you are bringing that kind of energy, the energy of the sun and the energy of consciousness, to explore and um, bring illumination to those topics.
Mm.
Because Mercury's there, you're also there to communicate about those topics, experiences, and bring it out into the world.
Right, which kind of makes sense.
Hmm. Yep. Because Mercury is the sign of communication, of um, of kind of data collecting, organizing, and so there it's going to give you a tremendous amount of investigative power because Mercury investigates. It gathers data, it compiles things, it sorts through all the details. So, if and it is also the planet that in the modern time has come to be most connected with the internet. So, the fact that you have it there is, I would say, well, if I didn't know you so well and already know this to be true, it would say, well, you would be on the internet investigating 12th house subjects of
I don't know how much investigating I do, but I do delve into it quite a bit.
You delve into it, like, it's, think of it, it's not like data gathering, right?
Mm-hmm.
Data gathering is Mercury. It's as well as communication. And you actually have a asteroid conjunct Mercury there called Forte, Forte. And I haven't done much research into it, but just like on the very literal level, it is Fortean communication. Fortean communicator.
Yeah.
Which is just a very interesting coincidence.
Yeah, it's an odd one.
Mm-hmm. So
that's where most of my action is on the chart, it seems.
yep, and so that is like a very very prominent and important part of this lifetime is working in that area, experiencing the world in that area. The 12th house is also called the joy of Saturn, and the part of the reason for that is Saturn is about mental discipline, and through mental discipline you can transcend some of the issues of the 12th house, which are, you know, um, you know, can be where you are feeling stuck in life. Um, anytime that you need to like really focus your mind, um, that is a way to transcend some of those things. But your Saturn is down in your third house, interestingly enough, of communication. It's also
Mm-hmm.
about other things. It's about short distance travel. It's about siblings and friends, and so, but because they're kind of linked like that, there's an aspect line. Your your Saturn, which is conjunct the Moon, is exactly square Mercury in your chart. So that is a square aspect, which is 90 degrees, is some tension. So there's some tension between all that stuff going on in your 12th house with the third house, which is communication. Because Saturn's there, it's about work. So how your interests affect work in general, how they affect your career in general, how you're making it into a career. And in that tension, can be a good thing because it can push you forward,
Mm-hmm.
move you further forward. Um, we when we look at it, we look at condition too. Is Saturn, or any planet happy in the place that it is? The planets tend to be happier in some places than others. And like I had said, your sun is exalted in Aries. It's very happy there. It's not really happy in quite in the 12th house, but because it's in Aries, it's much better condition than if it had been in a different sign.
Mm-hmm.
Your Saturn in your, it's kind of neutral for Mercury. Your Saturn down at the bottom is in Cancer, and it's not quite so happy there, because it's as far away from its natural rulership in Capricorn that it can pretty much be. So it's not quite as strong and happy as it could be. So it kind of makes it a little bit more tense.
Mm-hmm.
It's also conjunct the Moon. The Moon is extremely happy in Cancer, so it kind of like softens that a little bit. It balances things out.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is, in the ancient Greeks saw Saturn could represent father and the moon could represent mother. So there could be, and then it's the house of siblings, so that there could be some friction between you and your family. in your kind of interests.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just say that in general. And because you also have Mars in that third house, which is this circle with the little arrow,
Mm-hmm.
um, that can Mars can range from competitiveness to passion to frustration to anger. It's like heated energy. So
Yeah.
there can be a propensity there. You could just say from this looking at this is that and the other thing is the condition of Mars is that it's also like Saturn, not particularly happy in Cancer because it wants to be in a more fiery sign rather than
A water sign.
it's in a water sign. So it's considered at fall in Cancer. So it is challenged to be its very best. So like when I see that, I always feel like that is when you're kind of gaining some mastery over the topics that the planet symbolizes. But so there's learning here. One, you may experience a lot of like combustion in the family realm because a lot of the things that symbolize family is in this house of watery emotions of a Cancer in the third house of communication.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's this to the ancient Greeks, Mars and Saturn were considered the two most malefic planets. So here they are both in a house that's challenging and it's creating extra tension and challenge around issues of communication and um, family stuff.
Right.
That's what I'll say. And so that's just something to be aware of and that is in your natal chart that is a signature and it's just something to work and kind of grow with. Um, that said, um, your Mars is also what's called out of bounds, which is one of those things that I really love because it kind of works with your into cosmos of the ascendant.
Mm-hmm.
Out of bounds is it's out of the typical pathway and it's outside and it's a little bit more rebellious and it's doing its own thing. So it is like um this energy of kind of like fieriness is in a place where it's gaining mastery and it's doing its own thing,
Mm-hmm.
which I love about that. Uh, do you have any questions at this point?
No.
No.
No, I'm just letting you go.
Yeah, you let me go. So I'm slightly self-editing because one of the things that I've learned as I've studied astrology is that the charts can be just really personal. So here it is, and I know because you told me before, like, no, Holly, I don't mind. I'm gonna push my chart up. It's okay. And then I'm like, oh yeah, but for me, it just feels so personal. So I'm just careful.
Yeah.
Um.
I'm one of those people where I just don't give a shit.
Mhm.
Um, I got to a point where it's like, strip me down bare, here I am, This is the person that I am. I'm not gonna
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, there are some things that I do keep close, but it's not there's not a lot.
Yeah.
The most of my stuff is out there.
Mhm.
Things I've gone through, things I've done. I've talked
Mhm.
about my addictions.
Mhm.
The whole thing with me taking this month off being sober from friggin' weed
Mhm.
is a direct response to me seeing something in myself that reminded me of other addictions.
Mhm.
Um, and
Yep.
I wanted to change it because, I mean, the fact of the matter is I enjoy uh, cannabis, weed, marijuana, whatever the fuck you want to call it. I enjoy it, but I
Mhm.
don't want to abuse it.
Mhm.
And my whole take on this month was, get a fucking hold on it.
Mhm.
Prove to yourself that you can actually do this
Mhm.
and go forward from that point in
Mhm.
whatever way you need to. And I've
Mhm.
said, I was talking with Matt the other night, and I was talking with Missy yesterday. These things need to change.
Mhm.
Like, and if I need to take a week off here and there every month,
Mhm.
or a month and a half,
Mhm.
then that needs to happen.
Mhm.
It doesn't need to be a constant thing,
Mhm.
which was where I was running into my problem with it.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I made it a point to do this. Part of it was, initially it was I came to the idea because of I wound up taking a day or two off because I had run out.
Mhm.
And then the feeling that I got when I came back, I was like,
Mhm.
I don't get this anymore
Mhm.
because of how much I use this,
Mhm.
and it definitely became more of a crutch than anything else. I stopped enjoying it
Mhm.
and started using it as a crutch.
Mhm.
And because of that, I made a decision on my own. Nobody forced me into it. Nobody was like, you have to do this.
Mhm.
It wasn't friends, family, nothing like that. Um, but it was me. I
Mhm.
saw something in me that reminded me of something that has long since been gone.
Mhm.
Um, and I was just like, yeah, that's not good.
Mhm.
So I just fucking changed it.
Mhm.
I mean, and like I said the other night on the show that I did, um, it the first couple of days were hell.
Mhm.
Like, it was a lot
Yep.
worse than I had expected that it was going to be.
Mhm.
I went through basically withdrawal symptoms. And
Mhm.
people who think
Yep.
that that doesn't happen with marijuana,
Mhm.
they're sadly mistaken.
Mhm.
I hate to break it to them, but they're so sadly mistaken.
Mhm.
Like, especially with the concentrates that they have out there now,
Mhm.
you definitely can.
Mhm.
Um, and that was why I came to the decision. I wanted to get a better hold of what's going on in my own life, and that was
Mhm.
what it was.
Yep. Yeah. So, yeah, that's like perfect um application of like what you see in your natal chart, and that kind of tension between Saturn and Mercury and the Sun on that third house, 12th house square. Um, Something else we can talk about is, so if the first house is the house of self, which you have in Taurus, the seventh house is the house of other, which the opposite end of that is Scorpio. And so the other for you is very what they would call scorpionically um, characterized. So for you, you've got, and so Scorpio is about things that are deep and emotionally charged and um, transformative is another key word. Um, Scorpio can be the hidden, the occult. It can be um, things that are very intense, particularly emotionally intense, but can be physically intense. So the other or the experience of the other would be characterized by those keywords. You also have some other modifiers there. You have Uranus, which is nearly conjunct your descendant, which is the opposite of the ascendant, which is the self. And you have the what's called the North Node. So we'll start with Uranus. So Uranus is the the ancients didn't know about Uranus. It wasn't. discovered into the late 1700s, and it's interesting because it has a very an axis that is much different than many of the other planets, and it tends to seems to represent or symbolize things that are either kind of rebellious or outside the norm or eccentric is another good word for Uranus. So
Mm-hmm.
that they're for the things that are the other that will really kind of interest you or see you or understand you is those one-on-one relationships that have some kind of eccentricity or outside the norm character or untraditional characteristic to them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the other thing at the point of interest in your seventh house natally is that you have the north node there. So which seems that with the north node is the direction that you're growing. It's the place where you're getting, um, you may have a particular strength where you're the opposite end, which is the south node. And these are the nodes of the moon where the path of the moon and the sun intersect along the ecliptic. And they are associated with where the eclipses are happening in any given year. So they'll stay in the zodiacal sign for about, I don't know, a year to 18 months. So when you were born, the North Node was in Scorpio, which is right across from your ascendant. So this is going to say your relationship to the other is going to be very important to your personal growth in your life. And that this may, so the ruler of of Scorpio is Mars, which we had previously talked about down in the in Cancer. So they say if the ruler is in a house that's a cardinal sign, Cancer is a cardinal sign, that you are most going to have many significant one-on-one relationships in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Is what the ancients believe. Now, if it was in a fixed sign, it would just be one, and if it was what they call a bicorporeal sign, it would just be two. But because it's in a cardinal sign, they would say that that would suggest that you would have many important one-on-one um, relationships in your life, and that they may have this characteristic of being somehow unconventional, um, deeply intense. Mars is not Mars, but Scorpio is also the sign of the sexual organs. So you would suggest that it would be they would also with with intimate partners that they would be very sexual um, relationships, or that would be a very important part of the
Aspect.
relationship aspect of the relationship. No chastity's not going to work for you.
No.
No.
Oh,
Damn it, huh?
damn. Damn. I'm so upset.
Yeah. Um, so right now, currently the moon today is in Scorpio. So there's this kind of like emotionally intense energy already in the air. And it's what that does for you though, it just brings that there's a lot of because the moon is like that nurturing energy of the mother, brings
Mhm.
that people in your relationships are going to be more inclined to really take care of you today.
Hmm.
So there you go.
We can hope.
You can hope.
One can hope.
One can hope. Not putting any suggestions out there.
One can hope.
Yeah. Um, so career is something else that like people tend to ask about with zodiacal charts, and you kind of see those in the second, the sixth, and the 10th houses, and also we're a point called the medium coli, which is the MC. So you have for those three houses, they are all air signs: Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius, um, which are 2, 6, and 10 respectively. So the air signs, they are about exchange of ideas and communication, and um, in relating. So, and particularly even at the top, Aquarius is about innovative, imaginative ideas. Um, so which is your career house. So it doesn't it would be throughout your lifetime, what you're working on is making a mark in something that is imaginative, innovative, kind of, again, that outside of the box thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So in the short term, like how you make your money would be, that's the second house, Gemini, which is going to be about short distance travel, a little bit about salesmanship. Working with your hands is Gemini, so maybe some craftsmanship. It's about, um, merchants are ruled by Mercury, by Gemini, which is like buying and selling. Um, so if you're kind of have been in those roles of selling, maybe even doing a little traveling for work. Um, and of course, now Gemini is associated with the internet, and I know you have your internet bookstore that
Yep.
falls underneath Gemini. Um, but the house 6 is like how you're out there serving the world, and it's ruled by Libra. And it's Libra is about bringing harmony to things because it's about relating. So you're there in what you're doing, even with you have this big interest in the Fortean subjects. Ultimately, and there's a point there called the vertex, and Pluto is there as well. So Pluto brings transformation, and a vertex can be a point of destiny in your chart, according to the ancients. So it means that what you're doing in the sixth house matter, which is what the ancients called the house of bad fortune, but it would be like health and healing, um, of the body, interactions with, the people you work with and animals, and kind of just like the details of everyday life. That
Mm-hmm.
you're there to bring harmony, to bring some change. And I think you do that with the Freudian slip topics you talk about, because you can see a clear need for change in some really critical areas, which you see in the show when you've talked about, there's no support for people with mental health issues. Poverty is a real issue. These issues, in that way, you kind of use the parallel of talking about, you know, um, urban legends of, or maybe they're not so much urban legends about like Bigfoot and that kind of stuff. And then you always say, okay, but there's this other real problem that's a monster, and we need to
Yeah.
talk about this.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we do a show about Fortean topics, but it's the show's become so much more than that. Like, it's not just
Absolutely.
that. I mean, we talk about other things. We've delved into politics and like you were saying, mental health issues and
Hmm.
drug addiction and
Hmm.
there's so many avenues I've gone down for things that
Hmm.
are so important to me. I've even brought up you know abusive relationships.
Yep. In
Um,
problems with the medical industry. So what it is that you use your strength of understanding those 12th house issues into your like place of service to the world, where you're bringing harmony and illumination, and those two houses are bouncing, they're directly opposite each other. And the ruling planet of Libra, that sixth house, is Venus, who's your ruling planet of your first house of self, and is situated in the 12th house. So this kind of dynamic is showing that, and the other thing is that rules artistry. So you're using this is your artistic outlet to bring change to the world, to bring perspective to these things that you feel really need to be changed or looked at and are kind of being hidden, and you reveal it
mhm.
with that sun in the 12th house,
Interesting.
right? And so this is like your long-term work, which is your kind of outside of the box, outside of the normal, um, way of addressing problems. This is your way of doing it, which is your 10th house Aquarius,
Mhm.
of addressing how to illuminate and create social change through your artistry, your communication, and your experiences in the world, because so much of your stuff is fed from your personal experience, which is your first house.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. You
I'm a complicated fuck.
No, it's wonderful. I love it. It's great. And like um you are a real agent for social change, and that is a lot of what your chart says, is that you're, and that even though I think with the communication stuff there, that is with Mars.
Am I the great communicator? Chris York for president? Is that what we're saying?
You could be. I mean, I don't know, but I'm not going to predict that. I try not to make predictions. I just try to say, well, this is what this says.
Right.
But you're with Mars, like your mouth with Mars in this third house of communication, and is that you are your use of language is your greatest weapon. So what you have to do is, one, use it effectively, and in one way with the moon also in there in Cancer, it's trying to kind of soften and really hone so that you're kind of like that peaceful warrior, you know, using your mental and verbal strength and your insight into these difficult topics to create real change, but with the least amount of collateral damage,
Right.
which can is difficult, you know, but you can do it.
Yeah, maybe. I'm hopeful.
Yeah,
I'm hopeful for the future. I'm
yeah,
always hopeful.
yeah.
There's one thing that I've learned is, I mean, they say hope can be one of those things that can destroy you because, people who have an abundance of hope, like and nothing happens, like it can like just tear you down. But I am hopeful about
Hmm.
how things are and how things are going. Um, I
Hmm.
mean, I know, where I'm at in my head and where I used to be and, who I am now compared to who I used to be is a completely different thing.
Hmm.
And I know I've grown from there.
Hmm.
I mean, I still have a long ways to go in my opinion.
Hmm.
I have a lot of things that I can still change and still,
Hmm.
it's not like that I'm not aware of my faults.
Hmm.
I can say that with certainty. Like,
Hmm.
it's not that I'm not aware of things.
Hmm.
I am very cognizant. Um,
Hmm.
Sometimes I may be aware of them and I'm just not paying attention to them.
Hmm.
That happens quite a bit. We all do that. Our egos get in the way.
Yeah. Well, and right now the current transiting north node is transiting across your natal Mars, and so it is kind of like bringing up issues of kind of communication and how it relates back to yourself and your 12th house stuff. So that it is um, encouraging you to review those things right now and make adjustments.
Hmm.
The other thing is the point of another point of like your growth in your highest achievement in the world, and kind of like your best self, is this point I mentioned earlier, the medium coli or MC, and you see it in your ninth house, which is about um it's about travel, it's about higher learning, it is about um higher knowledge, and it can be about like kind of metaphysical thinking. And your zodiacal sign that rules that is Capricorn, which is about the structures of things. So you understanding that the structures of the conceptual thoughts and the organization of reality, which is Capricorn, um, is kind of like your highest achievement, and which is like it's a nebulous area, so that's a very like nebulous thing to say. But it had recently been transited by both transiting Saturn and Pluto, which is it's been a for you a revision of that. And it has to do with your career, which we talked about being this like outside of the box agent of social change. So
Hmm.
how you've been working to achieve that has been really kind of overhauled and revised, and it is a slow process, so you still haven't seen um the whole effect of that transit yet,
Right.
even though those planets have now moved off of that. So your issues around your career and where you're going, they've in a way got burnt down to zero, and now they're rebuilding themselves in a
Mm-hmm.
new, better way.
Right.
So it's very hopeful, and Jupiter is going to transit that point later this year. So Jupiter tends to expand things. You have Jupiter in the first house, so it's definitely an ally for you. And so you, you know what kind of growth you have is still happening, and how you kind of envision yourself and develop things, which is like one of your strengths, because you're a Taurus rising, so you know how to work hard, you know how to like put the right actions into motion and do the steps to get from point A to point B to point C. So this is looks like a really tremendous year for um, working on that. And each year has a ruler. So um, for this year, for you, it's a seventh house, what they call seventh house perfection year. So for you, that's, like I said, Scorpio. So issues of one-on-one relationships and relating are really important. Um, and your chart ruler Mars, things that have to do with Mars are really important. So that's energy. It's that energy of into communication, and because it's Cancer, it's the emotional relating and developing things, but also with passion. And so it's a very exciting time for you in your life, where a lot of things are finally kind of taking shape. And I know from privately talking to you that you feel that happening.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of promise there. It's like potential energy.
Right.
I don't really know how you're going to use it, but there's a lot of potential energy for you to make some changes and implement stuff and expand yourself. So,
Nice. Well, I mean, I'm like I said, I am very hopeful about this year. So,
yeah.
and I've made some statements privately to people about, you know, things that are going on and where I'm headed and the direction that things are going. And
hmm
I mean, I'm very, very hopeful for,
hmm
what that means for my career and, these creative projects that I do.
hmm
But, as with anything, we will see. Like, I put in the effort. I mean, people that think that I don't put in the effort for this are, sadly mistaken. Matt was telling me one day, he's like, dude, you, out of all the people that I know that do this type of stuff, you work the hardest. Like,
Yeah.
you put in the most amount of time.
hmm
You put in so much blood, sweat, and tears into the
hmm
podcast, the like page,
hmm
everything. And he's like,
hmm
I just, you know, I don't know what to tell you.
hmm
So, I mean, I am very hopeful because I look at it this way: the Freudian slip was created by a guy who was a nobody.
hmm
Like, I was a
Yeah.
nobody. I didn't have any social presence whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I just decided to do this thing because it was this thing that I just wanted to do,
Yeah. It was like like I said, the sixth house thing, creating an artistic outlet. And
which I needed.
hmm
And I also, the other good thing that the show is for me is it's good therapy. Like,
yeah.
a lot of times just being able to talk through my own shit or to being able
hmm
to vocalize shit, and get it
hmm
off my chest helps. Um, Being able to work things out, on air.
hmm
Sometimes it helps. Sometimes it causes a couple more problems. I've had issues where, things cause problems. I mean, shit happens. Um, but overall, it's been a very positive force in my life.
hmm
Has it caused some issues? Fuck yeah.
hmm
Like, I've had some situations where, it's caused me some problems either in my, romantic life or, just my personal life in general, or work. So I mean, it has its moments, but it's not. I have no intention of stopping doing it. It's important to me.
Well, right, and so that would be like that vertex in the 6th house is that work of artistry, and which is also a little bit about service to the world, is that place where, one, it brings you the greatest personal transformation, and that it is and because it is going back and forth with that stellium in the 12th house, that it is in its own way bringing you, it's a type of healing.
Yeah.
So So it is now 11:55. I hope that showed to some folks at least what this is kind of an example of a chart reading would be like, um and also, this is what's going on with Chris, and he was open to sharing it, so that was really awesome. So thank you, Chris, for
like
I
said, I'm
being so
not.
open.
I'm a pretty open book, so it's not like it's not outside the box for me to talk about my personal shit. So
Yeah.
I don't have any issue with it. But yeah, I've got to get ready to go pick up my son, and I'm having a nice little long weekend with him. As always, everybody, go over to Anchor. Anchor.fm/the Freudian slip, and you can download or listen to all of our shows, the Freudian slip into the night, and the secret show, which the secret show happens rarely, but it happens. I do believe there's some
and when it happens, it's a secret.
That's right. And I do believe there are a couple episodes of Down the Rabbit Hole on there as well, which I've done with my good friend David Batdorf. And I mean, if he'll ever come on again and do one, I will do another one with him. But I know he's been going through quite a bit in his own life with stuff going on lately. So I just been kind of like waiting for him to figure out when he wants to do it. And as always, people, go over and check out our good friend Bronx Johnny and the crew over there at High Society Radio over at gasdigitalnetwork.com. Johnny will be returning to the program sometime in the future. So, and until then, it's been another episode of Slip Into the Night. Glad you joined us, those of you who did. There weren't many people today live.
Zero. That's all right. I know it's not Bigfoot. It's not. It's not Bigfoot controversies. It's not.
No, hey, this is my fun show, Holly. This is one of my little fun things I like to do. So.
Oh, it's okay. This was for you. This is a little make you feel good. And
we'll be back next week. No, not next week. We will not be back next Saturday. We will be back the following Saturday with another episode of Slip Into the Night. And I will be live on Sunday night on the Freudian Slip, and then on Steve Cull's show, Squatch Detective, at 9 p.m. So look forward to doing that. Until then, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you the next time.